Hello. So today's lesson is on doing online research, selecting, assessing, and explaining information. Online research is an important part of your academic studies, especially at higher education. As a student, you're expected to do quite a lot of research to back your arguments as evidence. So the learning objectives of this lesson will be to select, assess, infer, and explain a variety of types of information and literature. And number 2 is to discuss organizational based situations and systems. Okay, so why is online research important? The internet is a vast resource for academic and professional research, and therefore you have access to diverse sources of information. You're not limited to only a handful of articles or thick books that were written 10 years ago. You have information that is available readily and is current and new and relevant to the situations that are happening right now. So online research will help you access a wide variety of information quickly. And this will enhance your understanding of organizational situations and systems. And as a student, you are expected to have the ability to assess and interpret information in a critical manner. So having variety of information available to you readily will help you develop that critical thinking and evidence-based solutions, and not just taking things at face value as it's given to you. So eventually this is crucial for success in higher education and professional environment. So going back to the question, why is it important? Online research is a skill that needs developing in the environment we are living in right now. So you don't only need to know how to research information using conventional methods such as articles and newspapers and books, but you also need to know how to search for information online and also differentiate between credible sources and just information. So not everyone that provides you with information is giving you real factual or using credible sources. So you need to develop this skill in order to differentiate between things that you can use in an academic setting and things that cannot be used. Okay. Next slide is talking about the types of online sources. So there are a variety of online sources that you can access. Here's a list. You have academic sources, which is the most credible one, the journals and the books. Now, university libraries will always have a lot of books and articles available online and not just physical copies in the library. So these are the first types of online resources that you will do your research on. Next on the list here is grey literature, which are reports and working papers. So peer reviews and reports written on the topic you are researching. You can also use websites and blogs So here is where you need to use your critical thinking and evaluate if the website you're using is credible, and is it backed by, academic sources. There are also multimedia, such as videos and podcasts, things like YouTube, other apps. Social media apps are used now as even news sources to report live on current things that are happening in the world. So in a way, the world is moving that way. So readily available information using actual people's reporting and multimedia sources using apps and social media. You can also include webinars in this. So there are information available in in podcasts or webinars, things that are like distributed by links, and using apps such as Zoom and Masterclass, and teaching or providing students with information through webinars. A short task here would be, if you think about what kinds of sources do you use when you are doing your research. This could be simple research on a topic you're interested in, or it could be academic research. So for example, when you're searching something on Google, or using academic database and websites to answer your questions, you can write a short reflection on this, talking about things that you have used previously to do research. Okay, so how do we select reliable sources? As I explained before, there is a lot of information available online. So how do we say which source is more credible than another one? Is this information reliable? Can it be used academically in assignments or answering questions in an exam? So the first thing that we have to look at is, are the author or the people that the person who wrote this article or the person who's reporting, are they a credible, their credibility and their expertise? Are they an expert in the topic that they are talking about, or is it just someone who's interested just like you, who's giving out information, something that they heard or they read somewhere? Okay, so the author themselves have to be first credible and expert in the topic. That shows us that the source is reliable. If the person who is providing the information is a reliable person or a credible person or as an expert in their field, then the information they are providing is reliable. Okay, also publications and date and relevance. So publication date, especially in books, so it will show us the relevance of the information. So something that was printed, unless it's a theory you're following and you're especially looking at something historical, the more new the information, the better. So the source of information has to be up to date, and the topic has to be current information that is available right now and relevant to the topic that is being discussed. So that again shows the reliability of the source. So you can't be talking about, for example, if you were asked to discuss, if you are asked to research on a topic on leadership or management, you can't be discussing or searching information on how much a product costs, something like that. So it has to be relevant, yeah, relevant information that is current. The publication dates will show when that information has been made available. So usually, for example, if you search something online or articles, they would have the publication dates at the top. In a book, it would always be in the first pages before even the content page and things like that. So it's always good practice to look at when something has been published. Another one is to make sure that a source is reliable, that you're selecting a reliable source of information and research. It's that to look at if the source is biased or is it objective. So is it weighing up the differences and showing you all the information clearly, or do they have a specific bias and agenda? Are they leaning towards one side of the argument? So in academic writing, you are, or academic research even, you are expected to look for things that are unbiased and objective. The only time that you look for information, it's well, not biased, but sometimes when you want to give evidence for a certain theory or a discussion, you might use things that strongly support that theory, but again, still has to be sort of objective, and there's an unbiased information provided. It's also good practice to use a scholarly database. So using academic database like Google Scholar, JSTOR, and examples like that. So also using your university library to find information for your research. And you have to understand the difference between scholarly articles and popular media and just, any websites. So it's always good practice to use reliable sources provided by academic sources, or especially encouraged by your university or your lecturer. Okay, so here we have a short task. Task is to search for an academic article using Google Scholar or the library database and find at least 2 sources you believe are credible. So the question you're answering is, how can organizations improve employee engagement? So answer that question using Google Scholar or the library and find only 2 sources that are credible. So how do we know they're credible? If the author credibility and expertise, when it was published, is it relevant and recent, and also check if they are biased or objective. Okay, so assessing the sources. Here's where you use your critical thinking and critically assess the sources. So we're looking to 3 different areas: relevance, methodology and evidence, and finally authority and objectivity. So when looking at relevance, you have to look at, so does the source address your research question, and is it directly applicable to your topic? So for example, going back to the question in the task, how can an organization improve employee engagement? So that was just a question in the previous task. So you have to see if the source of information you're looking at is it addresses that question. Is it looking at that specific question? So for example, the way to tell is it's not just talking about organizations generally, but ways that they specifically improve employee engagement, ways that they make them more motivated to come to work and engage. Okay, so is that what the article is talking about, or the source of information that you're using? Okay, and is it directly applicable to the topic? All right. Next is methodology and evidence. So let's look at methodology. Okay. Does the author explain their research methods? So do they have an explanation of how they conducted their research? Did they go and ask people? Did they use other sources of information? Do they talk about their methodology? Do they present their findings? So this will show us that this is a credible source of information that we can use academically. Okay? And also, are they appropriate for the study? So are they relevant and appropriate to the research that you are conducting yourself, or even that the source of information has followed? Okay. And then evidence. So does the source provide solid evidence to support its claims? Are the findings backed by data or references to other credible sources? Okay, so the types of data that they're using, the evidence that they're showing, is it credible? Is it things that are reliable that can be used in academic setting? Okay. Next, authority. This is where you have to ask yourself, is the source of the publication a reputable source, and is the author an expert in the field? So going back to the same as we looked at before, is reputation. Is this a credible source of information? The person themselves and also the publication. Is it something that you can use academically? Okay. Is it acceptable by your university? So especially when you are answering questions in an assignment or an exam, can this source of information be used? Are they reliable? Are they credible? And again, Are they objective and unbiased? Or do they have a specific agenda? Okay, is there a clear presentation that is unbiased? The information is presented in a way that's clear and objective and weighing up different sides of the argument and not leaning towards one side. Alright. Inferring and explaining information. This is when you are drawing conclusions from the sources and looking beyond the surface information that is provided to you, looking at deeper meanings and implications and conclusions. So you are forming your own conclusion and looking at the information that is presented in a critical way and looking at how they have an effect on the topic you are researching and the implications. And also, do you agree or disagree with the conclusions? Okay, so you are inferring from the information that is presented to you, and you're looking into it in a more critical way and not just using things as they are presented and taking information at face value. Next is summarizing and connecting information. So it's always good practice to summarize what you have collected and connect the information from different sources to analyze the arguments that were presented. So how do you do this? It's by identifying the arguments and presenting the information and evidence that supports the conclusion. Okay, looking at the way the author presented their information and what conclusion they have come up with, and is it strong or convincing? Okay, also recognizing the assumptions, so looking deeply into the way they presented their information and be aware of the assumptions that they themselves have put forward and how this might influence their argument or conclusion. Are they biased? The way how they're presenting the information, is it relevant to the question that you are answering, or is it pushing you to research further into the topic? Are you presented with different questions that you didn't necessarily come across before but are also relevant at the same time? Okay, and finally explaining the information. This is explaining how the research applies to the real world organizational situations. This is connecting your different sources of information and explain what you have found, summarizing the ideas, showing the connections between the different sources and how they are presented. Okay, so this is a recap and summary of the key points that we have been through. So, and online research helps you access a variety of sources, but you must critically assess the credibility, relevance, and the quality of the information presented. Okay, so critical thinking, looking at credibility, relevance, and quality are the main important parts of online research. Next, you are inferring and explaining the information using inference and explanation skills. These are vital to understanding and applying the research findings to real-world organizational situations. Okay, organizational systems can be improved with the right application of research-based solutions. Okay, so let's go back on that. So inference and explanation, especially when you are doing academic research, are important. So this shows where you are using your critical thinking and explaining the information that you are looking at. Again, judging its credibility and looking at information provided is unbiased and is presented in an objective way and also backed by factual information. Okay, and then looking at how this is applicable to real-world situations, because that's what higher education is. You're not just academically absorbing the information that you're provided with. You need to apply critical thinking and analyze and evaluate the information you are presented with and look into ways that this information is applicable to the real world and real life situations. Finally, here we have homework and a task. Okay, so choose an organizational problem such as employee turnover, team conflict, leadership challenges, so any of these, and conduct a research using academic database. Then write a report, short report of 500 words, summarizing the problem, the research findings, and the potential solutions using evidence from the sources that you have used. And the task is, at the end of the research and the report, reflect on the research process, so how you applied different research methods and sources in solving the problem, and remember to include this in your daily diary and keep record of it. And that's it for this lesson. Thank you very much.